How many of you have heard that a serger is hard to thread? I am going to prove you wrong in the next couple minutes and show you how easy a serger is to thread and get you nice and up close, showing you where each of the threads actually go. So before we get started, I have gone ahead and put on threads that are color-coded in the order of the actual serger. And one thing that you're going to notice too is thread quality is going to make a huge difference. So if the thread was inexpensive when you bought it, it's probably, it's okay. If you spend a little bit more on thread, believe me, life is going to be a lot easier. Your serger is going to be happier. It's like putting a higher octane fuel in a high performance car. If you don't get the best results. So since you know how much you've paid for this serger and how much you are wanting to get the best results from it, put good thread on it. Trust me, it makes all the difference. I've even taken sergers that are not very expensive, put good thread in it, and they work beautifully. So I've just gone ahead and put on our threads in the order. We're going to just thread up for a 4 thread for right now. That's a very common stitch to use on the serger. And just to give you an idea of what I'm going to do when I go up and over the top here, as I take the thread, I'm going to just take it from the spool and then come behind and then over the top to where I'm going. So I'll just do that right now. I'll kind of just lift all the threads up and over. I want to make sure this stays nice and straight and towards me while I am getting it all lined up here. Here we go. And I'm only using the ones on the front. Now you do notice there's one over here on the back. It actually has a purple notation, and that is for when we do a chain stitch or we have the 3rd looper engaged. So I won't be using that until I tell you I do. And now let's go ahead and get a little bit closer to the serger as we look at all the other parts that we need to be aware of. Now on the back side, there is this part here where I need to come underneath the little guide and kind of make sure it clicks in, and then I'm pulling the thread towards me. Now one thing that you're going to notice too is I usually am not going to have this on, the little thread catcher, because I'm going to be in and out of the front of this serger quite a bit. So I'm going to just leave that off, and now it's time to kind of open this up. The other thing that you would want to have done is make sure the presser foot is up, and then that way the tension discs have opened up and they're ready for or to accept the thread. So sometimes what I'll do is hold on up here at the top and then pull straight down, make sure they go into those tension discs, and then when the foot goes down, the thread will be properly engaged in and deep into those tensions. That's probably the one thing sergers people have problems with. They don't get the thread in the tension. Now, I picked the blue thread to start with. It's not the one right on the end, and that's because sergers have a proper order to thread in. There is a little threading path right here on the inside, and you can see that it's labeled. 1 is the blue, 2 is the red, and then we'll do the other 2 threads at the end, which are our needles. So I'm going to take a little pair of tweezers out here just to kind of let you see a little easier. The guides are all nice and open, so I'm following all the blue guides, including down here and then around. This one is the upper looper, and on a Bernina serger I've kind of noticed that the upper looper is blue, so I think of sky when I'm threading or looking for guides here. Now next is this upper knife can be moved out of the way, so I'm going to push hard and twist with my fingers. It is not sharp, so if you were to touch it like I am, you are going to notice that it is not going to cut you, but you can kind of get it out of the way. And now our upper looper, which the hole is right here at the end of the tip, that can be threaded through nice and easy here. Now what to do with this thread after you have brought it through the loopers. One thing that you can do is actually just lay it over the top of the foot. If you want, you can kind of slide it under the foot or even push it straight out to the back side, whatever works for you. Now our second thread is our lower looper. Then we're going to do the same thing on the back. Come underneath the little guide, come straight down, make sure, give it a little pull so it kind of goes into that little discs. And then again, the guides are just nice and open. That means too, if you ever miss a guide and realize, you can just go and hook it back in, which is really easy. Now the lower looper has a little extra place it needs to go. So after you get to this red mark, there is a white button right here that you pull down. And as you pull down, there's another little elbow that has come forward for us to put the thread in. So I'm going to just get a hold of this with my tweezers. I'm kind of at an odd angle here, so let me see. Here we go. And you're going to come up and behind there. And all I'm going to do is just lay it in there and then kind of hold it in place and then take that same white button and flip it back. So the lower looper has a place way back here that needs to be threaded. And that's how simple it was. Just a little drop of that white button, catch it in that little elbow, and then send it back to where it needs to go. Now the last thing we'll do is just thread the lower looper eye. Now, let me point out something. There are actually 3 loopers on this machine. So there's one way down here on the front. He's kind of tilted down, kind of pointing down, and he's way far in front of the other 2 loopers. This is for the cover stitch or the chain stitch or when you use a 5 thread. So make sure you don't get that threaded, otherwise I'll be incorrect. You want the one that's just right below the upper looper. So let's go ahead and we'll pull the thread through. Now this is the part where I always want to make sure I don't get caught around anything I'm not supposed to be around, and then just let it come all the way through. The other way I can tell I've done this correctly is see how this red thread lays right here in this groove? That's a way to know that everything is threaded correctly. Now since I have the blue thread out the back, I'll just let my red thread go out the back. And if you have it go up and over the upper looper, okay, see how it kind of set right over here, then we can, when it goes to get into the chain, it will be right where it needs to go. Now these last 2 threads, you technically could go in any order. Give it a little floss floss. These are our needles. So I'm going to go ahead and put my knife back down so I don't forget. Just roll that down and it will click into place. And then I'm going to go ahead and come across the front of the serger. So this one's green. So I'm looking underneath here. I'm going to go over for green. And then we have a green guide right at the top. And then a green guide. Well, they just have different kind of, just catch it behind those guides there. And this is the right needle, so make sure you do go through the right thread. Now we do have that needle threader, which I'm going to do a video on that nice and close, but for right now, since I'm pretty accurate with tweezers, I can just poke that right on through. And now we'll go ahead and do the left needle. Remember needles here? These are the same needles that you have and use in your sewing machine. So if you need to change them out just a little bit, you already have extra needles at your fingertips. All right, last one here. Now, when we get this all threaded, the one thing that I sometimes have my classes do, and this is more just for me, is we don't have that chain going yet. So I'm going to show you how the little trick for getting started so you know everything is going to work out just perfect. We're ready to close the door. Watch what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and you'll see me do this all the time, is take a piece of fabric, fold it in half. Now, if you sew along the 2 edges here, well, you can't open it to see how it looks as a seam. So I'm going to give you a good habit to get into, is we're going to always stitch off the fold. Now, the presser foot is up, and normally you put the fabric right up to the front of the serger and then just run it through. But you know what you can do is you can leave the foot up, slide the fold of the fabric in until it touches the knife, lower the presser foot, and if you want to really make sure things don't go haywire, and meaning you can see it before they do, is you can even just turn the first couple stitches by hand and let the stitches start to get all connected down here at the needles, and I can see they're looking really good. I have my needle threads are here, so I'm going to just clip them so they're out of the way, and then I'm going to step on my foot control, and we'll get to see how things are looking. Now that the chain is made, you can go ahead and use the knife. That's usually what you'll see me do, is just bring it underneath the foot and let the knife cut it off. And if I want to run a full piece all the way through from top to bottom, cutting off what I just made, so I have a clean seam, this is exactly what we're looking for. So as we're looking at our seam, you'll find that you'll have your blue thread, which is on top. That was our upper looper. We have our red thread on the back. That was our lower looper. And then we have two needle threads. You can barely see them, but they're side by side, just like a sewing stitch. And then when we open it up, we have a perfect seam. So we're going to get into understanding more about tensions and how to adjust them. I see just a little bit, I'm getting a little bit more red thread over the top than I would wish. So I'm going to go in and we'll show you how to adjust just slightly, should you need to, based on different fabrics you're using and what stitch you're using. So I know for sure by the time we're done, you're really going to understand how this serger is and how to make it sing on all your projects.